I'm happy to welcome you to this webinar on sustainable destination strategies within the Tourban project. I think I see there are many here who are SMEs in the Tourban project, so you know about the project. There are some people who I see who maybe are not so aware of the project. So it is a project funded by the EU within the COSME program, and the core is actually to support tourism SMEs in 7 pilot cities or pilot regions to become more sustainable, and by becoming more sustainable also tackle the challenges that are out there right now, which let's say maybe not started with COVID, but where COVID is one big aspect. But I think who, in the end, should make tourism companies make more resilient, towards the future. We do this webinars. Is one part of the project to let's say exchange and to also give input about certain topics that also we have identified as challenges and that we have identified as being important to tackle in the future. This webinar is a little bit about the most blurry one, where we say it's about destination strategies and what you do in the destination. But I think we have a good idea now how to make it a little bit less blurry. And this we don't do by telling a lot about theory, but by giving a really practical example of a destination who, in my opinion, is, and my experience in working with a lot of destination, is really the one who is, let's say, one of the most advanced in Europe and one of the ones who is doing it in the most, let's say, intense and holistic way. And also I have been watching it from the sideline, I think from the start, because I know Vincent for a long time. But I'm really always impressed of what Flanders does and how Flanders is approaching this topic of future development and how to tackle the challenges of the future. And so, without much further ado and much more talking on my side, I would like to introduce to you Vincent Nijs. He's the Chief Strategist of VisitFLANDERS, and he has been involved in the development of the tourism strategy of Flanders and also the implementation of the strategy from the start. And I really think he is one of the best speakers regarding this topic in Europe, at least one of the best that I know. And I'm really looking forward to listening to him. And the idea is also, when we set up this program for this webinar, that we give him the floor of explain a lot of what they do. So why do you need a good strategy? And in the end, when you have a good strategy, the work starts. And how do you do this work with the whole sector? And there's also the room that we have, that we can exchange with him, that we can ask him, that we can challenge him with questions, so that also we, who are often standing on the side of the companies, so what we can learn from their experiences for our regions and for our cities and for our companies. We have the idea, and then I stop, that we do it in 2 or 3 blocks. So that Vincent presents a bit, but then that we have go out of the presentation again, have a little bit of discussion, question and answers, and then go back into the presentation again. Probably it's a little bit less than the 90 minutes that we have set up for it, but as said, we wanted to give this some room. As usually when I listen to Vincent, it's always too short. We said now we have the opportunity to make it as intense as long as we want to. So that's from me, and now it's over to Vincent, and I'm looking forward to listening to you.
Thank you, Ulf. Good morning, everybody. Ulf, can I say that you created some expectations for this presentation? So I will have.
Happy to do this.
I try to deliver. Okay, I share my screen. Voila. You see my slides, I guess. So yeah, I'm Vincent. I'm working for VisitFLANDERS, which is a DMO in the very north of Belgium. Belgium is a not so big country, so we are a little bit more than half of the country, let's say, in the north. Brussels is in the middle of Belgium. It's the capital of Belgium, of course, but also our capital. So that's where our offices are. And to be honest, before we start, I'm really curious who you are. So if you could maybe just type 1 or 2 words in the chat, whether you're representing a small business or a larger company or a DMO or something else, then I can adapt a little bit according to the audience I have in front of me. So you can type it now in the chat what your professional background is, what kind of organization, and then we all know who we are. So startup founder, small tour operator. Thank you. Yes, travel agency, an SME, a food tour company, education. Thank you, Jan. A hotel, startup, consultants, DMO.
Yeah, so I think you have some fans already, some people you know, and who have listened to you also for 2 short presentations in the past, I think.
Even more expectations then.
Okay, I'm stopping now.
But it seems that we are a very diverse group here, which is interesting and which is good to know. The ones that didn't type yet, please do so, but I'll gently start the presentation. So I will talk about what I will show in the next slide, which is I learned by giving this presentation that I have to help you a little bit beforehand what it is about. So there's like 6 topics, and we'll do, as Ulf said, 2 topics and then have a little discussion among each other and listen to your questions. The first part is about the new vision that we created for the future of tourism in Flanders, but which I think you can generalize in other places. This vision is called Travel to Tomorrow. The objective in the vision is flourishing destinations, which I will explain. Then we created, after finishing the vision, our strategy, which is called Flora et Labora. We use 6 teams to develop and promote Flanders. And I will make it more and more concrete when we go through the session. It starts very high level. A vision is very high level. It's even rather a philosophy, but it goes more concrete with the projects and the actions that we do. And then I'll focus on the last 2 years, which were very difficult for you and for many players in the sector. And I'll explain what we did for businesses and SMEs in Flanders to support them. And to conclude, something about how to measure the impact of tourism and how we promote. So that's the program. Before letting me talk, I'm pretty curious what your ideas are, and you can use the chat for that again. What your ideas are, what before 2020, so let's say before that pandemic with the C word, what were the most important challenges for tourism according to you? And it can be for you personally as a traveler, or as a business, or as a DMO. It can be for residents. Think about everybody involved in the tourism field, and you can type it in the chat. So there's already one which is saying over tourism. Yes. What more? Feel free to type whatever and as many as you like in the chat. Or you can also say it if you like. So there's low prices also. Over tourism ×2. A lack of awareness. can I call it, of the impact of tourism. Thanks, Alicia. What more? For those who have businesses, did you have challenges, or was everything went smooth? Cruise, and I can say over tourism ×3. Labor conditions, yes. Employment. Impact on locals, yes.
Now you got them going, huh?
Yes, I have to go fast now. Pollution, so let's say environmental impact, yes. Sustainability in general, I would say. I type digitalization, but I see somebody saying the moderate investments in digitalization. A little focus on sustainability, indeed. Rachel, your chat is a bit funny, but thank you. Human resources, so labor conditions and employment together, also many times that you name it, for digitalization. So not enough, but I think that digitalization also created challenges. Huh? Thanks to rapid digitalization, the peer-to-peer rental, etc., went very fast and also created some issues. Yes, thank you very much for very good input. Then maybe a bit expected, but then the pandemic came. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are, what challenges became challenges since the pandemic knocked on our doors. So if you could then bring your ideas to the chat, then we also bring it together here. Over tourism too. And can I say under tourism too? Challenges, businesses, you had challenges in 2020, 2021, or was it all going smooth? What are your ideas? Yes, closures. Safety for sure. It's a bit strange that safety didn't come up before 2020 because it was. I'm going to add it. It was a big challenge, safety. We had the attacks in Brussels and in many other places in Europe. So safety and health, definitely. Shift from international to local, hygiene. I guess, yeah, sustainability in general as well. Short-term planning, indeed. Employment. Yes, very good. So I think we all see there is specific challenges to a crisis like a pandemic, but there's definitely some challenges that we had and we're still there, or got bigger or reversed. And we had some over-tourism problems before Corona, let's say, but in Corona, most places were lacking visitors, but many places got a lot of visitors. The nature parks in my environment, everybody went for a walk, and then there was over tourism, let's say, in nature, mostly of locals. Sustainability in general was an issue a long time already, and all aspects of sustainability, some of them even got bigger, I think, during the pandemic. Or we thought, oh no, nobody's flying, so it will have a positive impact. But then when tourism comes back, it all goes back to normal very fast. So I must say, when we were 2017, we realized that things were going on in tourism, and we saw many things happening, especially also in other destinations. And we thought we have to start this process to rethink the future of tourism and to see what impact we as DMOs and partners can have on it. And looking at these trends was one of the inputs that made us do it, but also, looking at our own data and data of partners. And Bruges was then an interesting case. Some of you have been to Bruges already. I hope so. If not, then come, and especially during the midweek in off-season, because then we have a better balanced tourism. But Bruges is a medieval, very beautiful city at the coast in Flanders. You might have seen the movie In Bruges. It's not giving a beautiful picture of Bruges because they make fun of it, but if you've seen it, then you have an idea what Bruges is. And actually, Bruges in the Middle Ages looked like this. It's an eye-shaped, very small town. It's only 2 by 2 kilometers, and still it looks like this. This is an old map, but still the map of Bruges has a similar shape. And I'm wondering, if I would ask you how many visitors in a year, and this is of course before Corona, I took 2018, this little city with less than 20,000 inhabitants would get, what would be your guess? You can say it or type it in the chat. Is it 20,000 visitors, 100,000, 1 million? What do you think? If somebody can start, 1 million, somebody says 8 million. That's a lot. 1.5, Monica says 8. 2, 3, who bets more? Well, the right answer, those of you who know me know that I was in tourism research for 20 years. And the right answer to my question is, dear Vincent, what is your definition of a visitor? Huh? Because if you don't know who you're counting, we don't know how many we will have to put on as a number. But I will quickly explain, and I don't blame you for not asking me. It was measured by big data with mobile data, cell phone data. So it means it's all kind of visitors, not the residents, not the people in hospitals, not the people working there, not the people there who have very regular visits to the city because they go shopping, but it's all leisure, business, day trip, excursionist, recreational visits to Bruges. And the number is a lot. It's nearly 10 million in 2018. So if you look at some details there, the most visited day was 60,000 visitors, which is 3 times the inhabitants in one day. I would say only 2.5 million is the classical number of the overnight stays. And big issue is that 50% of everybody who visits Bruges is staying for only 3 hours or less. Cruise travelers and cruise is mentioned as a challenge, stay for 2 hours. So this must have an impact. So that's why we started doing resident studies. And the first one was in 2016, but I'll share the 2019 figures here, but we also have 21 figures because we do it every 2 years now in all our big cities. So my next question to you is, do you think the residents are still positive? And the question we asked them was, there was a statement, I support tourism in Bruges and I want it to remain important. So what share of the people in Bruges in 2019, so 2019 was the moment that there were still 10 million visitors a year, how many out of 100 say, yes, I support? Is it 20%, 50, 70? You can type it if you like, or say it, but not Ulf because he knows, I think. And if not, I blame you if you don't know.
I always forget these things.
Some Ivan says support is 70%, oh 60%, Monica 70, Ljubljana 15, 30, 70, 78. So it looks like we're have different opinions. It was 76% that scored 4 or 5 out of 5 on the statement, yes, I support tourism. And most others are neutral, so they're not even negative. It's only 6% that was negative. The first study in 16 was 4%. Another question was the benefits, still more benefits than the negative impact, and 2 out of 3 say yes, there is more benefits than negative impact, which is already less than the people that support. So there's people that support that say, yeah, but there is more negative impact. I support, but there's more negative impact. And if you look at some specific questions, for example, in some districts, I feel limited in my comfort. That's almost 60%. The number of tourists reduces the viability of the city. Almost half of the people say yes, so that's not good. Our city is no longer ours, 1 in 3. And tourism has a negative impact on my daily life, almost 1 in 4. So many people support tourism because they don't want to lose it and they like meeting visitors, etc. But it's clear that there's a lot of impact. And maybe not too much time to go in detail here, but it's interesting that we have a timeline in data. So every 2 years this study, and you see 2017, 19, and 21, that it's evolving a lot. If you look at the, let's say the worst statement, tourism has a negative impact on my daily life, was 1 out of 10, becomes 1 out of 4 almost. And then in the pandemic, in a lockdown, it's still 90%. Yeah? There were no visitors in Bruges when the 90% of the people said that there was a big impact on their daily life. So it also shows that it's a mental thing. They know that they were going to come back, the visitors, and there was a lot of attention to the impact of tourism. So even with no visitors, 20% say there is an impact on the daily life. Another source that we used, and this I will not explain in detail, but I hope you will be inspired to go and have a look. In this process of creating this new vision, we thought we have to make sure we know what the positive impact of traveling is for the traveler. So we wanted to get like 1,000 travel stories from travelers and managed to get much more than 1,600. We trained students, colleagues, friends in listening travel stories, and they all talk to people, and with the central question, yeah, tell me a story about something that once happened when you went on holiday, and that still has an impact on you. And yeah, we learned that it's a cyclic process that then is realized. You are somebody, you go somewhere on holiday, so you make a decision where you go, and then something might happen. This is the story the people told, and after going back, you reflect on it, and it maybe changes you. So you might be the changed traveler because of something that happened to you, and you might make new and different choices in your life because of that. And what we did is in our strategy, we used this. So what was happened there? It was always something about something that people did. So it was an activity or people they met or places they visited or saw. A confrontation with a painting or with the cathedral in Santiago de Compostela, for example, that can have a big impact after walking 600 kilometers. But walking 600 kilometers is an impactful activity that you do. And often it's a combination. But I'll talk about it more when I talk about the vision. You get the report here, so go and have a look if you're interested. It's available in English. So, and I come to what the vision is then. we worked 1.5 years with many partners, and more than 400 partners were involved in think tanks, in inspirational sessions, which we facilitated and which we started by saying, let's create this new future for tourism together, and which we didn't want to force as a government top down. We started by saying we actually don't know what it should be, and we are open to listen to everybody to create it together. And what was the result then? The result was that we believe in focusing on the positive power of tourism. So we could also say tourism might have a negative impact, and everything we have to do is to fight the negative impact. I'm not saying we have to ignore the negative impact, but what we believe we should do is create a better future with tourism if we emphasize the positive effects of it. Which means that before, as a government, we invested a lot in subsidies, in projects, and we wanted financial return for that. We invested millions in the sector, and we looked at how many millions do the millions bring. And then in the end, how many visitors? And we all know if you only look at growth and more visitors, you might end up with problematic situations. So we look at it in a more broader sense now, and we want to create like larger added value, social return, but also economic return, which we call, if you manage to do so, flourishing Flanders. And what is flourishing Flanders? That we symbolized in our tree. This is a linden tree, which you find on many places in Flanders. A tree where in history people came together. There was a lot of connection between people. Parties, celebrations were done surrounding around the tree. And this is a bit the metaphor of our vision, where we want to create like a better balance between residents, visitors, businesses, and places. So it's three people related aspects, and then our places, because we think the place cannot speak, but it's also very important to take it into account. And we want to use tourism not as a final stop. I think many NTOs, DMOs, including ourselves, in the past had strategies where tourism was the goal. And the goal then was have many visitors, and then that's all good. And we believe that you should turn it around and make tourism a means, a kind of a positive instrument with a higher goal, which is then flourishing destinations. And this is in one sentence the way we gave this to our politicians when there were elections. And what I want to say, because I was reading the chat. No use of yellow. What do you mean, Monica? Yellow, the color. Is that what you mean? Can you say it?
Hi. Yes, when there was the statistic, once you have the gray color and the black color, you can't read the yellow color.
Okay. On my screen we can, but good that you
with
say
the numbers.
So. Yes, it's a
it's
problem.
Not
it's part of our. I know. Yes.
I couldn't
Very
read
good
it.
Point.
It's okay. No worries. That's fine.
It's part of our branding, so that's an issue. Huh? Yeah, Flanders is yellow, but thank you for saying so. So what we did after this process, the vision was ready. We handed it over to the politicians because it was elections and we were getting a new minister of tourism. And it happened as we liked it. The new minister embraced this input and she put this as a main goal in her policy note, in the formal tourism policy note, saying that together we want to strengthen the role of tourism as a positive force, and use the positive aspects of what tourism can bring to make sure that Flanders can flourish as an innovative, inspiring and qualitative travel destination. And then it comes for the benefits of the inhabitants, the businesses and the visitors. So for the first time, residents were part of the tourism policy. And so then we created our strategy, which is called Flora et Labora. So it was first this process to create flourishing destinations vision, travel to tomorrow, then the new minister, the policy note, and with the policy note, there were some choices about teams focus, which I will explain, and some principles. And the principles are very easy, I think, and we use them all the time. All the colleagues have to know this, and in every action we do, we have to check whether what impact it has on these principles. And the first one is the vision. Is how can we create a better balance of the impact of tourism for as well in residents, visitors, entrepreneurs, and places, and how can we create a better balance. Then this is from this listening exercise from the research, creating stories, creating connections. In everything we do, we want to try to find how we can facilitate to create meaningful connections between people, between visitors and visitors, between visitors and residents, and with activities. That was the doing part of the circle, with unique stories linked to unique places in Flanders. Then we want to do this in a participative way. Not just top-down, same way as we created the vision. And this is then old school, I think. There should be safety, quality, innovation, and creativity. And we will stick to this strategy. And I can say for the first time, we have created a strategy. If we get requests, can you also do this? Or can you work on this? Or can you finance this? That we can easily say no, because it's not matching with the principles, or no, it's not matching with the teams that we selected. And knowledge-based work is, given my past, also very important. I don't know why I have red lines here, but you also see them, Ulf, the red stripes?
Yes, I think it appears that people are allowed to draw in the presentation, which I don't know where I enabled that, but apparently I also don't know how to get rid of it. So
okay, no problem. So this was the first part about the vision and the principles and Flora et Labora. The next part is about the themes we work on. But before going there, please feel free to ask some questions about the vision, or how we did it, or what is maybe not clear for you. Or if
maybe,
you like,
Vincent, you can stop the sharing, and then we can see, like, if somebody wants to say something, they can put on the camera, so we can have like a real real talk if they like to. But so remember, first part is it's a good idea to have a good vision, and now we have learned about this good vision.
Somebody wanted to say something? I heard.
Yes, sorry, it was me who was drawing, because I'm on the phone and I couldn't figure out how to get to the chat and see, and I was zooming in and suddenly it started to draw on your screen. So I have no idea what happened. Sorry about this.
No worries.
Keep on drawing, I would say, no problem. What is, when we had this ready, we didn't have any idea what it meant with regards to our role. And the most common feedback that we got was, it's interesting, we like it, and it's not something you can oppose. It's something you rather embrace the vision. It's positive, but what are you going to do? What will be your role, and how will you then act? Yeah. Which I will talk about in the next part.
Do you see there is Leonie?
Yes, Leonie.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, everyone. I was just wondering, because you were talking a lot about like implicating the people in a participative process, etc. So I was wondering how you were doing that, like how you selected the people, how you involved them, what was the format that you used to like make the people actually participate and make them feel part of it.
Yes, it goes both in how we created the vision as in what we are doing now in our projects. because there, but I will explain a little later, there we involve residents and small businesses in the projects that we are developing. But for the vision, we started old school, let's say. We invited the sector like we always do, like, hey, in 2 years there's elections. We want to give input to the political level, what we think the focus for tourism should be. And then like traditionally 200 people come to a big meeting room in Brussels, and then they listen to us. We did the same. We invited them, but we said we don't want you to listen to us, but we want to listen to you. And we expressed these principles of, yes, we start from collectively not knowing what it is, and we want to facilitate and inspire you, but do make this new vision together. And this way, the next sessions when we invited people, those who came understood that it was working this way, and it was not us saying what it should be. And maybe Ulf heard this story already, but in this first session, there were 2 directors of museums that left after 5 minutes because they said, yeah, I expect from the government that they know it, and I was expecting you to tell us what the future would be. I don't like it this way. But let's say the other 198 stayed and then helped us doing it together in all the next steps. Yeah.
There is one question also in the chat, which goes, how do you communicate to your employees and make sure that they follow the idea? So it's more this internal thing, which I think is also very interesting in the Flanders case. Huh?
Yes. In one of the magazines that we created, and I will provide Ulf with the links afterwards, the magazines where the content on the vision and examples were explained. There was like a visualization of, you need, this is a big change. That is a paradigm change. You have to look at what you do at your own job, at your own sector in a completely different way. And in order to make this change, you need some people that are a bit thinking ahead, but most of your colleagues should keep on doing what they did. So this is what we try to do. There were like 8 or 10 internal colleagues involved in this, and the others were informed, but the door was open. Who wanted to be part of this team could, but we tried to find a balance with let's not shock our own colleagues that tomorrow everything will be different, because people don't like that, but try to inform them in a positive way, but also get them inspired and sometimes get feedback from them during the process. Does it work? For most, maybe yes. For some, it's still difficult. I think it's general that people sometimes are afraid of change, and that it's difficult for some. But those are then not the ones that are with you in the front, let's say, making the change. But gradually, by having also workshops with the colleagues, they start to understand, and now it's all common knowledge, let's say. But it does feel it's not a nice feeling all the time, I have to say, making this change, because you're confronted with many questions constantly, difficult questions, you don't know answers. You come home after such a workshop, and then sometimes you think, oh my God, what are we doing? But in the end, it all comes good.
Yeah, I think it's more about the measurement which you wanted to show in the end. Huh?
Yes, I'll talk about how we make the evaluation, because tourism is seen as a much more broader thing. So measuring the impact is much more work. And to be honest, and this is maybe one step to the next part, our role is much broader now, which is also a challenge. Because we hired some new people in the last 2 years. Because there's not many things that we can stop doing, but there's many other things that you have to start doing. And KPI said that's also related to one of the last slides where I will explain how we measure the success of tourism in Flanders, but also our own success.
Maybe we move on?
Yes.
What do you think? Yes. So, because the questions all lead into the next part. So what did you do and how did it go?
Indeed, I share again. So the next part is about and share. More concrete, what teams do we work on? And it's already my next question to you. If you think about what Flanders is to you, what kind of teams would you work on? And what is a team? For example, heritage with painters and castles and museums is one of the themes. If you think about what you know about Flanders, what teams would you work on if you were us? You can type it if you like. It's also a bit of a reputation question. What do you know about Flanders? Huh? When nothing is coming in the chat, I have a reputation problem.
Yes, yes, yes. And how was it in Japan again? Because I heard this with your multi-market studies, and I was always impressed that the Japanese, they know this one story, right?
Yes. So in Antwerp, there is Nel en Patrash, which is a story of a little boy with a dog. There is a statue of the boy and the dog also in front of the cathedral. And nobody knows in Flanders about this story. I didn't know about it. Really, nobody knows. Nobody knows what the statue is, but in Japan, everybody knows because it's a story that's been told to children about Antwerp. Yes, but that's a detail. It's not a common
And it's
theme.
Japan, it's not us. But here you see at least some people are answering with.
Yes, food and beer. Correct. Gastronomy, correct. Flanders Red, when that's about the football, not correct. But there is a sport that is a team. Cycling, no? Somebody knows the Tour of Flanders, the cycling tour. Voila, so it's heritage, it's our nature, it's our gastronomy, culinary, it's cycling. I will explain. And then two different kind of teams. This is making tourism accessible for people from Flanders, people who experience barriers, which can be financial barriers or mental or physical. And then this is conferences and events. But for each team, I will quickly explain, especially how it works in general, because each team, this is heritage, has sub-teams we call storylines. And one is, for example, Flemish Masters. This is Jan van Eyck. This is the castle where Rubens once lived, and this is part of Bruegel painting. These are the old Flemish Masters, which were very successful project in the last 10 years. And we like rejuvenate now by looking at other and more modern masters. There is the war, which is unfortunately a big part of our history. 100 years ago, the end of World War I was in Flanders. And there's a lot of monuments, cemeteries, etc. And we celebrated, but that's the wrong word, of course, the remembrance of 100 years World War I. And this was actually the start of the creation of Travel to Tomorrow, because there in this project we realized, and it ended in 2018, we realized how important this, which we call Tourism Plus, looking at much more other impacts than the economic impact of tourism, because there's a lot of positive impact bringing people together related to this sad part of our history. There is castles and gardens, and I will give examples of that. We started to buy some castles, but also some monasteries and abbeys. So that's why we believe those should be also part of the heritage team. Very short about nature. I think many other countries have much bigger nature areas than Flanders, because we are quite dense populated region, but still there is a lot of very nice nature spots, and there is one national park and 3 more will be created in the next year. So that's why, together with our other colleagues from the government who are creating the parks, we make sure that there is a visitor experience in the national parks. Culinary, there is one specific storyline about beer, somebody mentioned, because beer is very top of mind when people think about Belgium and Flanders. There's so many different beers, this big culture of tasting special beers, which we further develop it. We also look at wine. This is one of the consequences of climate change, that already now the wine production is getting very professional and the wines are getting very good in Flanders, which was not like 20 years ago. Cycling is two kinds of cycling. This is what we call cycling with the mammals, and this is a persona which we named mammals are middle-aged men in lycra. There are also Wilmas, which are women in lycra, middle-aged. Luckily, it's not only middle-aged people coming to do this. This is what we sell suffering. It's running uphill in the Flemish cobblestone hills, and there's even people from the States coming with their cycling bikes to do the Tour of Flanders for amateurs, for example. And then the not so sporty cycling is a very interesting sustainable mobility mode, which we can use to connect the other teams, for example, cycling tours to the different castles. Then very short, because there's a lot to say about this, but in short, we have an interesting team working on association conferences. We don't do business to business like company meetings, etc. That we're not involved, but for associations, yes. And there we're not looking for, I think about Travel to Tomorrow, not looking for the biggest the biggest conferences with 5,000 people, rather those where we can make this connection. I think about the principle of bringing people together, the connection between experts from all over the world and experts in industries, in the intelligence sectors from Flanders, to make sure that we create some kind of legacy because of the conference. And we try to make those conferences in heritage venues, which is also a label that we created to link heritage and this theme. And the last one, I'm particularly a fan of that. Every year we make sure that 160,000 people from Flanders that have not enough money to travel, that they can go on holiday in Flanders. So for all the other teams, our focus is on international visitors. But here we created a network where we make sure that people from Flanders with those barriers can go on holiday by, it's the SMEs, it's the businesses that lower the prices. So it's a kind of corporate social responsibility where we make sure that the network exists and that when the people have the needs, that they get in contact with the suppliers, and then they lower the prices for the specific target group. And it works already for 22 years and it works really well. And it's a network already of 2,000 partners working together. And Hendrik talks about the Dodentocht. I see. Okay, more concrete, what do we do then? We have some instruments to apply the principles of Travel to Tomorrow, and some are the ones that we did already. I'll talk for one last minute in the end about our promotion. We still have offices abroad selling Flanders, but it turns into a completely different way, which I will explain. We always had quite large financial instruments, which are subsidies or supporting projects of others. This was also what we used to do. We have labels like accessibility labels for museums and for accommodations, and we also financially support those accommodations to have better accessibility for people in wheelchair, for example. But in everything we do, we have now this check of, what will be the impact on residents, on visitors, on businesses? How can we create a better balance? So there's a lot more exercises in deciding, are we going to support this or not, thanks to a framework that is linked to the vision. And this is very new. And this relates to one of the questions in the break about how do you involve partners and residents. We do like participative projects, and the biggest examples are the pilot projects. These are the sites that we bought ourselves, that we acquired. For example, for those of you who have been in Antwerp already, this is the modern museum along the River Schelde, and next to it there is this neoclassic castle where we will create a Flemish culinary center together with partners, together with people from the neighborhood, to make sure that this is the place where locals, chefs, culinary interested people, amateurs can meet, where there will be events, will be a show cooking kitchen, etc. But this is huge. Yeah? It's a huge project, and of course it needs quite some budget to. This is a smaller project, but also in the heritage site is an old abbey in Oudenaarde, and some of you might know Oudenaarde from the arrivée of the Tour of Flanders, the big cycling tour, which is in April every year, arrives here somewhere, and so in this abbey we are creating a cycling hub, same as for culinary, where cycling pros, cycling amateurs, people passionate about supporting teams can all meet here. The cycling tracks will start here. It's a place to come together with relation to the cycling team. Just another example, a very big abbey in the east of Flanders with a huge nature park surrounding it, which we will use in the nature team. And then which I particularly like, and also working together with the teams on this project, is that we bought these 3 castles. Some of you that know the painter of Rubens, Rubens had his palace in Antwerp in the middle of the city, and there it's still the Rubens Museum. But this is 20 kilometers south of Antwerp in a big park he owned in like 400 years ago, this castle, and he created many paintings which we recognize the landscape. He created them from the first floor of this castle. And this is how it all started. The castle was on the market, and a private person was going to buy it. And then if that would happen, then the gates would get closed, and this history, which is very linked to this neighborhood, would get lost. And we wanted to open it back to the public, for the people from Flanders, but also for the international visitors. So we bought the castle, and we are now redeveloping it, which is, making sure that the building itself is still state of the art, but also adding new experiences and new Rubens experiences. And for Rubens, it was clear because there was this history of Rubens linked with the castle. But in the other 2 castles, this is also a project together with many players and locals from the neighborhood, where we have an open white sheet, I would say, and together we write the future of what can we do in this place, making sure that it's still authentic, that it's still linked to the history, that it makes sure that local communities will flourish again thanks to the castle. Now it's not used, it's empty, it's very beautiful, it's nice to make a walk there, but there's so much more potential, and this is the potential we want to look at in the development. And here, just a video, there's no sound, that's normal. This is in the Abbey in Bruges, and you see during the lockdown and the first summer that we could start doing small things, respecting the social distance, etc. We opened the doors of this Abbey, which was closed for 400 years because it was like a closed slot monastery for nuns, and the last 6 nuns left some years ago, and they're now living somewhere else. And the visitors could experience the place. What you just saw, they could eat in silence like the nuns did in the cafeteria, and they had like a nice experience in the Abbey. And then we wanted to get to know from them what their thoughts were for the future. This was a podcast they could listen to in the garden here. And this Abbey is in the middle of Bruges. It's 2 hectares big in small Bruges, so it's a big part of the city actually, and nobody could ever enter it. So we thought, let's open it for some weeks, and then what you see people are doing here, they are answering our questions, like hey, you've seen this place, you've experienced something. What would you do with this place? Huh? How can you inspire us by redeveloping it? And we thought we would get like 1,000 or 2,000 visitors, and in 4 weeks we had 16,000. So it was clear that there was a big potential and that many people were very interested. This is actually the church in front of the abbey. It's another monastery which we are also developing, so in the same street. And this was a concert in the church where people in the church were lying on the ground while the musicians were playing the live music. And this is the way we try to organize like kind of events, open the doors, invite people, but also invite investors and small businesses to make sure that, yeah, they can get a place in these sites and develop their business. In the Abbey, for example, different small businesses will get a place to do their thing and develop a startup, for example. So enough talk about from me about this. I was wondering, yeah, I explained we bought some castles. I have to say, for many people this was strange because it's not actually our task as a DMO to buy castles and abbeys. But we're doing it for a reason. Why do you think we do it? That's my question to you. And as always, you can type it in the chat.
Yeah. And there were already some questions, I think, in the chat. And maybe because we saw people are, I think they have to collect their thoughts a little bit. Maybe my first thought about this, I find this always very, very impressive. What you're doing, also like how much budget you must have for your DMO, also how big the trust apparently is by your government into the DMO, because I see in many places, other regions, this is not the case. So often the governments and the DMOs, they are, I don't know, either working against each other, or the DMO only does what the government says and no nonsense after that, or it's still only about promotion and really not about tourism development in the region, or it's split it in many agencies and not one that does it all. So I'm really always impressed how, yeah, what a strong organization you are apparently in Flanders. And the other thing, but this goes to your questions, and that's why I'm also interested what they say, is, I mean, you're more, let's say, interfering with the market than maybe in other destinations. So I think this is also like an interesting aspect. Yeah, where let's see what the questions are.
Yes, I look at the question and first answer your interfering question. Before doing this, the 10 years before, we built 9 youth hostels because there was a gap in the market. One could say, oh, when you do so, you're also interfering the market, but this, we study it and we see nobody is doing it. We invest in the new youth hostels, and then we put a company doing the management, which will be the same with these sites. We will never do the exploitation of it. The management and the day-to-day management, once they are ready, will never be done by us. I will show when my slides are there again. The location of the sites is kind of remote. Two are in big cities, and the others are, I wouldn't say in the middle of nowhere, because in Flanders nothing is middle of nowhere, but they are kind of remote to make sure that we can have better spread in space of tourism flows. But let me see at the questions. First, there was another question about the teams. You refer to as a sort of internal task force. I know when I say teams, I mean themes, THEMES, the like heritage and nature. But we have teams dedicated on these themes. And in our organizational structure, each theme, like heritage, has a theme responsible, and then a team of experts who know a lot about working on these themes. And we made a big organizational change because everything we do is now project-based. So there's a multidisciplinary cooperation between people of different teams to work on these themes. Why do we do it? Somebody said preserve heritage, protect natural heritage, make sure heritage is preserved. Indeed, we don't want this to get lost. And this is also this is another gap. Nobody is investing in, nobody's buying these castles to develop. There was one exception there, and it was supposed to become a private clinic for plastic surgery. But then, yeah, then it would not be for visitors or for the locals anymore. So it's definitely for the future generations, as somebody says. Are we a DMO or a DMMO? We are, the M in MO is management. We are, part of us is a marketing organization, which is the other M. So we still market Flanders, but the emphasis is on the management. How can we manage tourism better in our destinations? Somebody, Franica, very good point about spreading the visitors to less visited areas. Very good. And also Leonie says the same. Shall I show the slide which I where I can say this is actually why we do it? Voila. Definitely because we want to learn. This is also this, I'm not saying that we start from we know nothing here, but we are definitely learning because developing these castles was not our core competence. To develop within our teams, all the choices of the sites are in our teams. We have all the principles of travel to tomorrow, which is do it in a participative way, try to connect people, places, and activities, create better balance, go for quality, also accessibility. We can all apply this in these castles and be an example. Not like, hey, look at us, we are the example, because we will do it together with many others. But still, we learn and we hope others can also learn. Then others can also do redevelopment. We know from research that there is a big interest group. There's a large potential. Many people want to visit castles, for example, or want to come for cycling to Flanders. Then it's nice to have this abbey where they can come together. The spreading in time and space is mentioned. Definitely sites in the problematic context. If I show you again this picture of the middle castle here, it's 60-hectare park, and the price we paid, and we bought it from the local city in Alter, the price we paid was €1, because for them the castle was a big cost, and it will be for us too. But so that castle was not expensive. Because we want to experiment and inspire and get inspired, but we will also formally make policy conclusions, because we want to make sure first we will need new budget from the next minister to finish this, but we will also want to give advice on what is the next step. Is it this what we do and then we stop and do other things, or shall we look at other sites, for example, to develop? And this is the map. This is Flanders. In the south.
Vincent, there were maybe two interesting questions
yes.
which fit very well, because Monica asked, do you want to be the national trust like in the UK?
Yes, very good question.
And the next one, I think too, with expecting to be independent from political changes. Yeah,
we don't want to be the national trust, because that would definitely not be our role as a DMO, but we want to and we are talking about it already, look at the possibilities to have a kind of trust in Flanders. Because this idea of bringing so many and linking so many heritage places, having a community linked to it, so many people that are kind of members of this, call it a trust, there is a lot of possibilities then, because it's people that want to take care of the places, that want to visit the places, that want to be ambassadors for the places. So yes, the trust idea is alive. By investing in your property, yes, There's two things in Marion's question. Be independent from political changes, and definitely by investing in these properties, we want to make them sustainable, which be a huge challenge to get to CO2 and eco targets with these sites, but this is the goal indeed. And with to be independent from the political level, yes, this is definitely what we want to do with Travel to Tomorrow and Flora et Labora. With the next election, which is already in 2 years or 1.5 years, we will give to the politicians. This is still our base. Travel to Tomorrow, this vision should be the base for the next policy period. The choices in Flora et Labora, we want to keep them stable. And this way, we give ourselves a president, because it will hopefully not be another next minister who says, now it's different and now we focus on this, forget that. But it's also a present to the politicians, because they get something very solid, which seems to work, and they can then build on with their own accents. So we help the political level, but we also create some kind of independence thanks to the vision and the strategy. Somebody, Monica says, isn't it said that the municipality sells? Well, it's only in one case that it's the city that is selling, but we're still doing it together with them. So they're actually very happy that we can make sure that this iconic place will be still an iconic place in the future, instead of just being there and nothing is happening with it. So thanks to the, let's say, the approach that we do, it's not us invading there doing what we want. We are helping them actually to create what the place wants and what it needs.
Oh, I think we lost him. I guess he needs to get his power cord for the computer, if I understood.
You hear me, Ulf?
I hear you. You lost your power, huh?
Yes. Do maybe a little break, and I'm back in some minutes. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I do some in between wrap up then. Maybe let's see.
Yes.
Can you wait? Can we stop the sharing? Do we stop the sharing? I think now I see everybody, so it's good. Now I think from my perspective, it's really always an impressive story to hear what they do in Flanders. And I think it is also clear that it cannot be done the same way everywhere. But I think it is, from my observation, really one of the cases where the top down and the bottom up seems to really work in a good way, and where always, maybe it's also a cultural thing from the, in the bottom-up approaches, they always try to ensure the participation of all the stakeholders and want to reach agreements and compromises. And I really, and this is also something I didn't know, this example of this monastery in Bruges, where they opened up for the public, but let's say mostly for the local public, for just a limited point of time, and say, how could we develop it? So to get the ideas, I really like that. So so it's this this connection of different stakeholder group. It's the participation of different stakeholder groups together with this quality and added value thinking that I really like. And often when I'm in destinations and being asked to contribute to destination development, it's not as good as it is in Flanders. And often you have to, like, especially talking with the DMOs, you have to start from the ground, and sometimes really the bottom, let's say the top down doesn't work, or is even sometimes working against you. And I think then bottom up is of course the same, the only way, and also sometimes the better way. But I think the principles are very good, and also to keep in mind for, let's say, all kinds of collaboration. And this is what I really like about here in Flanders, where everything seems to work very, very well, but also to learn about regions and destinations where maybe, yeah, let's say the top down and the bottom up doesn't link that well. But I see Vincent has power again.
Can you give me sharing rights again, Ulf?
Oh, I need to do that. That's so nice to be the boss. You have them now.
Thank you. If we want to make sure that, okay, I'm sharing that we don't exceed the 90 minutes because you promised we would be shorter, then I think we have to move on now. You have more
Yes.
questions about the last section, or?
Let's see if there is something in the chat, but I think this was all. No, you covered them all. So I think it's nice and interactive. So we can go for the last stretch now.
Yes, so this is focusing on the support of businesses in the sector. Different story, because we go back to, if we look at the timeline, Travel to Tomorrow was ready in early 2019. Then there were elections. We had a minister after the summer. We created Florel et Labori in the beginning of 2020, and then bam, then we had the pandemic. So first of all, we were actually glad that we had a strategy, because we could look at the principles and at the ways we wanted to look at tourism and to develop it, and it actually helped. It felt like we didn't have a Corona plan, but we had like a plan which we very could fit a crisis into. This is just quickly that you have an idea, which is what happened in all places, I guess, but this is the evolution of 19. So before, 20 in the middle, and 21 a little bit of recovery. But what was interesting, I thought, was if we look at different products in Flanders, which is a coastal area, the art cities with a lot of heritage, and then the rest of Flanders with a lot of nature, let's say, that at the coast, they lost less than half of the visitors thanks to the domestic market. And in 21, they almost got everything back in volume. Less international, but thanks to the people from Belgium. The city is completely different. They lost 2/3, and they only gained back, let's say, half of the volume of before. And in the nature area, they lost a lot. And they got back, let's say, in between the two. So it's very different evolution patterns for these different products. So what we did was, first of all, we brought together the sector. We were sitting in the meeting room, I still remember, with like 50 partners of all federations and all, the associations that represent the sector in Flanders. And the first thing we did was to share the good actions that the sector was doing. For example, hashtag Feed the Nurses. This was people from restaurants and hotels that didn't have visitors or people to come to the business, and they started to create lunches for nurses in the hospital, for example, or even beds in hospital, in bed and breakfast and hotels. They opened them for doctors, for nurses that needed the rest, for example, and they couldn't open for tourists, but we allowed them to open for the medical sector. But then more heavily support, let's say, is that we created the COVID risk event model and infrastructure risk model, which was a kind of protocol they could apply to make sure that opening the place again was going to happen in a safe way for events and for museums and attractions, etc. We did a big promotion campaign, which is normally not what we do in Flanders. We work on the international markets for promotion, but we promoted Flanders together with our partners for people from Flanders. And we created like experiences online for museum visits in a virtual way. Then there were protection mechanisms, and we helped them a lot in getting more flexible rules for temporary unemployment. There was a way to support the businesses, and we created loans. This was not us; these were other colleagues from economic part of the Flemish government, to make sure that businesses survived. And specifically in the social tourism sector, we invested almost 30 million in these accommodations to make sure that they were still there 1 year later. And this is particularly interesting, I think. It's a bit complex, but I will show you. Look at the red triangles first. This is the share of all businesses in Flanders, here on the left side, that had liquidity problems before Corona. So let's say 9% was in trouble, was not going to make it probably. Then we did, the Flemish government invested in these businesses to make sure they survived. And this is the share of businesses that are in trouble after getting the support. And this is the share that would be in trouble, 40%, if they would not have got the support. This was all businesses in Flanders. But if you look here, this is different tourism businesses. There is a lot of conclusions. For example, in the event business sector, they were doing very well. Hardly any of the businesses were in trouble before Corona. That's 2-3%. Thanks to the support, it's only, let's say, 90%. But if they would not have got any support, 90% of the businesses would have stopped. So it means how important it is to support these businesses. It's a very special story for restaurants and cafes, because first of all, it's the red triangle that is the highest. It's 18% of restaurants and cafes were in trouble even before Corona. If they would not have been helped, 60% would be in trouble. But there is it's a better score. Is the only one where together with souvenir shops, where the green circle is lower than the red triangle. It means that there is less businesses in trouble with the support than there were before Corona, which means the government was helping businesses that were not going to make it anyway, apart from Corona. I think it's interesting to look at it this way. Other investments we did, there is quite big investments, 30 million that went to some 100 SMEs and larger businesses when they would do sustainability investments in their business. They could apply for a subsidy. In total, we used 30 million for that, and part of that has to be paid back once. I don't know when, not yet. So it was part a subsidy and part a loan without interest. We invested 10 million in the festivals in this first Corona summer, because they didn't have, the organizers didn't have the money to organize the festival. They didn't have enough financial means. So we helped them, and this they didn't had to pay back. And small festivals could get like 70 to 100,000 euros. Some big festivals, 500,000 euros. And this is like the biggest amount of money. It's almost 220 million support for the sector in different subsidy calls for heritage, nature, cycling, etc. So we had targeted calls on making experiences in a sustainable way to make sure that we develop in these teams and help partners developing with our input. Yes. And maybe Ulf, I just show the last two slides, then we can have the final questions. This is it looks complex, but I will explain. This is the measurement framework that we use, where our KPIs are linked, and it has two sides. Let's start with the right side. Flora et Labora, Travel to Tomorrow, it's about creating these flourishing destinations in Flanders thanks to tourism. And we are on the left side, we have a role. We want to facilitate things, organize things, subsidize things, but it's not only us having an impact. So that's why we make it in two sides. On the right side, we created together with Leuven University a measurement framework, which I can share if you like, about what is a flourishing resident, what is a flourishing visitor, a flourishing entrepreneur, and a flourishing place. We put indicators on that. We set a methodology on how to measure it. We collect it ourselves, or partners do it, because we created a knowledge network where different partners use this framework and measure all these things together. And we bring it together in a barometer, which is a dashboard online, where we can keep track of how is this evolving, how is the resident attitude evolving, how is the evaluation of visitors about the experiences in Flanders evolving. And so this is one side, which is maybe what it was before, but then much larger. It's still about how many visitors and what do they spend and when do they come, in what type of accommodation, but also a lot more, because we also look at other indicators. And then on the left side, there is our strategy goals with KPIs, which are sometimes linked to this, because we want to have a positive impact on flourishing Flanders. So we both look on the left side with our own KPIs to the destinations on the right side, but also to the effectiveness and efficiency of actions and projects that we do. So our KPIs and indicators are a mix of those two, of the left side and the right side. And what the 1 and the 2 and the 3 means is that this is this fifth principle of knowledge-based work. We want to base decisions and the decision to do projects, for example, on input knowledge, which is the first kind of knowledge. It's studies, it's the measurement framework that helps us, is this a good idea or not? Then if we do it, then there is an effect, there is outcome of the project. So we have to make the evaluation. This is the second kind of knowledge, which is then going back to here, because it means we learn something. Do we have to change something? Yes, then we do it differently next time. And then the third source of knowledge is the measurement framework of the destination. And in this sense, this becomes like one system of knowledge and making decisions and adapting and learning with 3 steps, let's say, because we want to be a learning organization and improve. And then the last thing I wanted to share is doing promotion is still important, but is changing. And I will be very short, but because we could spend an hour on this topic only, but just in short, it's of course a lot about segmentation, but and definitely not about mass marketing, not any big campaigns. It's niche in 2 groups, which you can see in the circles here. If you have a product or an experience or a topic, like let's say cycling sports, you have in the heart, you have the makers, you have the people who are organizing the tours, the cyclists themselves, you have other professionals surrounding it, and then you have people, tourists possibly interested in it, and they are very passionate about it. These we call the passion groups, and they love to be in contact with the professionals and the people from the heart, let's say, and with each other. And those are communities, especially online. Those people, they meet online. The same for World War I, for example. There's a big community online with people that meet online, but also want to meet in person. And what we do is we try to be with them and in a positive way, make use of the already existing passionate communities. And the lovers are like a very much larger group of people also interested in it. They're not like diehards passionate about it, but if they travel, they like the topic, which can be cycling, for example, but can also be visiting castles and heritage site. So our marketing is then playing with these 2 kind of groups and make sure that you find the right instrument, intermediary person, journalist, or just be in the community yourself to inspire the community. And mostly, especially fanatics, they don't have to be inspired because they inspire each other. That's the good thing about it. So voila, that was the story. So the last part was about the support for the sector during the pandemic, and then the measurement and the marketing. So please shoot, I would say, challenge me if you have questions.
You have 5 minutes, but maybe you can stop the sharing, and you can look at the last comment, which at least for one of the participants shows that you have reached the high goal that I have set with my announcements. So first of all,
personally, I think I have to make sure that I have enough electricity to make it to the end of the
If you talk for
webinar.
90 minutes, you have to make sure about the electricity. Yes.
But I wanted to challenge you, Ulf, that you got your 5 minutes.
I think now you get, it's already the appraisal time, but there would still be time for questions if you like to. But
yes, and on the last slide, we'll share it with you. You got my email. if you want to know more about the measurement framework or other things, the listening exercise, etc. If you Google Travel to Tomorrow and Visit Flanders, you will find some stuff also. So
yeah. Okay, then maybe if no questions are there, maybe I do a short wrap up. I did it before when you were in the electricity break, so I think really it is very inspiring, and it is a great work that you are doing, and it's always impressive to watch. And I'm really happy we could listen to you for this 90 minutes and discuss, and also the way you interact with the group. I know you do it even more when you're on stage, but I think for being online, this was also fantastic. And what I really like is that you stick to the strategy, you stick with the principles, and you apply these principles everywhere in your work. I mean, I think this has become very clear. So when you buy these castles, first you think, does it fit in the strategy? And if you develop them, then it has to go in line with the strategy. And also that you say you were lucky to have the strategy when COVID hit, that you could also apply the help and use the government funds to push the sector in the right direction. Because I think in other regions, it was often that, it was just, I don't know, there was no strategy to how to divide the funds.
I think it made us credible indeed in the government. Like, okay, tourism is tackled professionally and it's suffering a lot, so we have to invest in it. Yes.
Yeah, but I think it's also this appears very clear. I mean, you have a big budget, but you also have a big responsibility, but it seems you live up to the job, so the trust is justified. And it seems from both sides, so from the government, but also from the sector. And I think this is quite interesting. But there were now some questions in the chat, so maybe we can go briefly through some.
I will quickly do it because we are almost there.
Yeah, we should stop at 11 sharp, that is sure.
Yeah. Emissions, I didn't talk about it, but of course it's part of the environmental effect of tourism. It's part of the place in the tree, and we also have a sustainability plan with concrete actions how we can make our organization and the destination more sustainable, and there is also about CO2. Personally, I think it will be very difficult, but we set some goals there. The KPIs, I didn't literally mention them, but they are linked to the before last slide with the two circles, providing the different stakeholders. Yes, it's not easy, Marion, to say in short, but there is this participation ladder. We want to do things in a participative way, but it doesn't mean that everybody can get what he wants all the time. So there is this way of involving people, listening to people, making decisions, but in the end, you have to decide things. So we still, of course, have steering committees, mostly our board of directors, that then make decisions. Okay, there is this proposal of all the input. This is the future of this site. And now in Bruges, for example, this is already ready. A master plan of we will do this, and there will be a new building on the site, and this will be a new experience in the site, and then we make decisions. You cannot let everybody that was involved make the decision. How we encourage creating new tourism activities after the pandemic, that is with these subsidies. The big subsidy calls where we want others to create projects in our teams. We set the framework and we set, but we leave them free to create new experiences. And when it's really good, then we do this with a kind of jury, then they can do the development. But Ulf, I think we will have to stop. There are some more questions.
Maybe I like the last one. If there are other destinations or persons who inspire you when doing this.
Well, we were inspired by many during the creation of Travel to Tomorrow. We worked a lot with Anna Pollock. There was Jervis Bush, who is one of the pioneers with appreciative inquiry. There was also some experts from Flanders. So we picked some experts and let them make inspirational speeches and participate in our workshops. But Anna Pollock is definitely having had a very positive impact, and I really appreciate her help there, because the idea of flourishing and the living networks, that's her idea. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
Maybe one last sentence from me is you did it mainly, the main work of all this you did yourself, and you did only use consultants when you really needed them, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
And I think this is really a big difference to many strategies that are out there, which are fully written by consultants, and sometimes the DMO is not even involved.
Yes, a good point to conclude, Ulf. You have to be in the lead of your own change. Let not do consultants coordinate your change. Be in your own lead and hire people for the process or for the expertise along the way. But
I think this is also a strong message for all the DMOs. Sorry, the SMEs who are here, the companies, the owners. Yeah, I think you cannot. There are some things you just cannot delegate, and this shows if you don't do and if you take the responsibility, how it works well. So
yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and thanks everybody for staying with us and replying many times to the chat.
Yes, I think it was as interactive as could be. So thank you very much. I think it was a great 90 minutes, and have a good day, everybody. And yeah, we will see everything, like the material that Vincent said. The recording of this webinar will be on the Tourban community. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Ulf.
Okay, Vincent, thanks a lot.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.